Welcome back, everybody.
Hey, everybody. Welcome to another episode of the Notes My Goats podcast. I am Brandon, and there's no Steve again today, guys. He is slacking off doing something that he probably shouldn't. That's, I don't know. I don't really know what he's up to, but it is what it is. So I am riding solo again, guys. This is the second week in a row that you're hearing me on a Friday episode with just me and the guest. And you know what? That's okay. So we make things work because that's what we do. So, guys, today, nonetheless, is going to be a fun episode. We've got a former guest. Her husband was also a former guest on the podcast. And we were actually, this time around, though, Elizabeth, it's going to be much better than the last time you were on the podcast.
Well, yeah, because this is not an album I had to suffer through.
Absolutely.
This is
absolutely
not as crusty.
Absolutely. Guys,
or moldy.
There you go. Absolutely. Guys, go check out last July of 2022, when we talked about bread with Elizabeth. And so guys, without any further ado, you already heard her voice. So let's get right into it. Guys, please welcome podcaster, author, all things, everything pretty much. And please welcome back to the podcast, Elizabeth McDuffie. Elizabeth, welcome back to the podcast. Good to have you.
Thanks for having me. It's great to be here.
Oh my goodness, it is so great to have you back. So today, we had talked about, again, having you come back on the podcast, and we're like, this time, let's do something else. And you provided us with which artist and what album that we're talking about today.
Well, we are talking about Patti Smith's album, Easter, her third album, which dropped in 1978. So I know you guys are doing 70s, so this should...
We are, yes, we are definitely
fit right in there.
Yeah, absolutely. We are definitely leaning more into that older. I don't want to say older, not old. I mean, I was not around in 75, or whenever, but it was
78.
I was not around, but it is what it is. So guys, as you know, Steve does all of the Wikipedia research on this. And so if what I'm about to tell you from Patti Smith is incorrect, Elizabeth, you can correct me, but we will just blame everything on Steve, and he can't, fend for himself. So it is what it is. So guys, we are talking about Patti Smith and her album Easter. Full name, Patricia Lee Smith. That is just such an American name, just all around. She's an American singer, songwriter, poet, painter, and author. Rose to fame as an integral part of the New York City punk scene with her debut album Horses in 1975. Active since 1967. She has 11 studio albums, 8 solo, and 3 with the Patti Smith Group. She has 3 live albums, 19 singles. 2 most successful charting albums that she has is Easter and Wave. She's got 4 Grammy nominations, no wins. And with let's see, she was inducted into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame in 2007. In 2011, she was the recipient of the Polar Music Prize, which is a Swedish award given to one contemporary and one classical musician yearly, kind of like a lifetime achievement award. In 2021, the debut album Horses was inducted into the Grammy Hall of Fame. These are some famous people here who count Patti as an influence. We've got Shirley Manson, U2, Elliot Page, Courtney Love, Madonna, and Florence and the Machine, among others. So although Patti has been labeled as a feminist icon, it is a title that she never really wanted. She is quoted saying, "I have a son and a daughter. People always talk to me about feminism and women's rights, but I have a son too. I believe in human rights." And so let's see, what else does Steve say here? In October of 2022, and we kind of talked about this a little bit, the three of us, a track called Rock and Roll, and then the N-word after it, was quietly removed from all streaming platforms. The track was originally recorded for the album we are doing today, and the streaming services left all the covered versions of the song up to their own services, or up on their services. The song has always been controversial because of the repeated use of the word, and Patti states that she meant the word to mean kind of more rebellious and honorable outsider in this context. So we will kind of get into that, I'm sure, a little bit. There's also a Rolling Stone article from what Steve says that Patti was comparing using the word towards a kid while walking down the street at a comedic endeavor. Steve says that y'all can look that up on your own and that it's rough. So there's that. So Elizabeth, before we kind of dive into Easter and this album, Steve likes to mention and asks us, now I know it's sitting right in front of me, so I'm going to ask you, how many monthly Spotify listeners do you think that Patti Smith gets?
Oh my gosh. Gee, I did so much homework for this, but I didn't look into that.
We try to keep that on the down low because we don't want people to look.
Yeah, but I should have been ready for that. I'm just gonna take a stab at it, and I would think it'd be a sizable number.
Sure. Do you want like a reference point?
Well, let me just take a stab at it.
All right.
Let me say 100,000.
100,000. You are giving her too little credit.
Whoa. And that's impressive.
Absolutely. I'm not sure when Steve actually did this review, but at the time that Steve wrote his notes, she had 2.8 million monthly Spotify listeners.
Holy crap.
That's what I thought. So absolutely. So let's talk a little bit about Easter. Not the holiday, the album.
Can I add one more thing to her?
Absolutely.
Just to her list of accolades. She's also a very accomplished author.
Sure. Yeah.
And she was a National Book Award winner for her book about her early New York City days with Robert Mapplethorpe.
Okay.
Who was briefly her boyfriend, actually.
Okay.
Before figuring out that he's a gay man. They were friends until his death.
Sure. Okay.
But National Book Award, that's a big deal.
Yeah.
I'd love to have one of those. So that's a big accolade.
Oh, yeah. Good. So, all right. So Easter, guys, released March 3rd of 1978. 39 minutes long, includes a bonus track that was released in 1996. It was Patti Smith Group's third album, produced by Jimmy Levine, who went on to co-found Interscope Records. It was the group's first release after Smith's neck injury she received while promoting their second release of Radio Ethiopia. This album was seen as the commercial breakthrough for Patti and the group due to the single Here Comes the Night, co-written by Patti Smith and Bruce Springsteen.
It's Because the Night.
Because the Night. See, I'm only reading Steve's notes. Thanks for correcting.
It's okay. I'm here to help.
I appreciate it.
I'm totally here to help, Brandon.
I appreciate it. So this album does feature a fair amount of religious imagery, mostly Christian and Catholic leaning. Notably, the song Privilege is derived from Psalm 23. Ghost Dance is derived from a Native American religious revival from the late 19th century. So that is what I have on this one. Elizabeth, let's start breaking down this album a little bit, and I'll start with you. What was one of your favorite tracks on this album?
Well, there's a podcast, No Dogs in Space, which I recommend for music aficionados, especially people who want to get into the deep days of punk rock.
Sure.
And Marcus Parks, the host, kind of sums up my feelings very well, which is a real bummer that the most sonically excellent song on the album is also the most lyrically problematic.
Okay. Yeah.
So you probably know where I'm going with this.
Yeah.
My favorite song on the album, problematic language notwithstanding, is Rock and Roll N-Word, because it is a banger.
It really is.
It's such a banger. It's got such drive and such momentum, and the band is just hitting it hard, and they're just tight as hell.
Yeah.
But you know, he also goes on to say, and I agree very strongly, that it's just an act of hubris to try to rehabilitate that word, and especially for a white person to talk about white savior syndrome,
right?
To take on the task of rehabilitating that word. But notwithstanding, that is my favorite song, because you listen to the whole thing start to finish, it's a rocker of a song.
It really is. Absolutely. No, I completely agree with you.
It's so good.
It is so good.
I think it's interesting to note that the very next song on the album, if you're listening on vinyl like I did,
there you go,
is called Privilege.
Oh my gosh.
Oh, what? Yeah.
It is. Oh my gosh. I didn't even see that. Wow.
Oh, wow. Little white privilege happening right in front of our eyes.
Right in front of our eyes, and we didn't even know it. It's probably because I had to listen to that song like on YouTube. And so I listened to that first there, and then I bounced back to the album. So I didn't really, so then it went from, it didn't quite go into it, but yeah. Oh my gosh. But yes, talking about, rock and roll, like that track really is, it was one of those where I kind of had this like push and pull, like it really, like, yes, that word is incredible negatively. Well, yes. And, but yet the music itself is straight fire. It really is really
it's so good.
It's so good.
It's such a good song. And, the people she cites in there too, like Mick Jagger was a N-word. Really? Was that his struggle in life?
I mean,
in his private Learjet, did he? Yeah,
right.
Was that a cross he had to bear?
Right. Exactly. Right.
Doubt it. And then
100%.
Jimi Hendrix was an N-word. Well, would she like it if she walked up to him and addressed him as such?
Yeah.
Or even to put a stronger point on it, if she walked up to his grandma,
right,
and addressed her as such, would that go over well?
Oh, I'm yeah, right, exactly. Yeah, no.
This is not a white person's job. It's
not.
If someone wants to rehabilitate the word, I don't know, Barack Obama,
absolutely,
Michelle,
yep,
Amanda Gorman,
yes.
No, they want to take that task on. I will sit up and pay attention, and I'll be all ears.
Right, but not Patti Smith.
Not a white person's
with
job.
with a name like Patti Smith. Let's not go down that road. So.
Well, you know where Smith came from, right?
I don't.
Well, her husband was Fred Smith, frontman for MC5.
Okay.
Fred Sonic Smith.
Oh.
So this is some rock royalty.
Yeah. Absolutely. Absolutely.
Yeah.
All right. So for me, that one, just like you said, that one was a fantastic song for me.
So good.
It is so good.
Why ruin it with that word?
Absolutely.
Just why?
No, exactly. For me, I picked Because the Night as my favorite track. I picked this song because the chorus has a pretty cool groove to it, especially being in the 70s. But I also like the guitar solo in the middle. Just great track on this album, super fun, and it was also super popular. So you can't go wrong with super popular tracks. So
that's a Bruce Springsteen song,
Like originally?
Yeah, that's the story behind Because the Night is that's Bruce Springsteen's music, and then she wrote the lyrics. So it's a collaboration between Patti Smith and Bruce Springsteen.
Interesting.
And the
Okay.
producer was kind of behind getting that one on the album because he wanted a radio friendly hit.
Yeah.
And Patti Smith's idea was Rock and Roll N-Word would be the one, but even in 1978, just not so much for the radio.
Fly. Yeah.
Not so much.
Right.
So yeah, but that's a Bruce Springsteen, and you can hear Bruce Springsteen's.
Oh, you absolutely can.
Version of it too.
Okay. Yeah. Well, I mean, and you can even hear that collaboration like in this track. Like you can hear the Bruce Springsteen vibes to it. You're like, yeah. I mean, you say that, I'm like, yeah, I can hear Bruce in this for sure.
Yeah,
so,
yeah.
Absolutely.
It's a great song.
It really is. So we're only going to do one game today, but we're going to do one more thing before we play our game. And let's talk about those least favorite tracks. I'm sure we have one. I'll start this category. My least favorite was actually the track that made the album title. I picked Easter as my least favorite track.
Interesting.
Yeah. So I wanted to point out that the thing that I did really enjoy about hearing on this track was church bells in the chorus and the instrumental section between verses. I really liked that on this track. Incorporating something like that is really cool, and something in my eyes as a classical musician and one who kind of likes to hear different things in a group that you don't normally hear. I really like hearing that. But what I didn't like about this track was there was repetitive phrasing and repetitive melody that just kept going on with the same notes the entire verse. It's super nitpicky, but of all the tracks on this album, this was the one I found myself kind of checking the time to see how much longer there was left on it. Or the more I listened to this album, the more I ended up, once I realized what was going on, I ended up skipping it. So this one for me ended up being my most skippable. Definitely. I mean, it's a track to listen to, and it's one that, I wouldn't normally bypass, but, yeah, after, doing the review for this, for me, I listened to this album probably 4 times. And, by the 3rd or 4th time, I was like, all right, I'm a little over it. So for me, Easter was my least favorite track on this one. What about you? Did you have a least favorite or a more skippable track?
Yeah, actually mine was Ghost Dance, because just on the subject of things that aren't the jobs of white people, maybe just doing Native American sounding music is also not the job of a white person.
Yeah.
Just going to go out on a limb and suggest that.
Absolutely. Oh,
so this, kind of faux Native American tribal dance. It's like, she's a white girl from South Jersey. Come on, stop it.
Yeah.
Stop it.
Exactly. Now, was this her this is just me just kind of going off the cuff here. Is this kind of her like pushing the envelope, or was this kind of her style kind of doing stuff like this?
Well, I mean, she's a poet first. I mean, when she actually made the New York scene and made it big was performing her poetry at St. Mark's Place.
Okay.
With the Beat. So she hung out with Gregory Corso and Allen Ginsberg and all those guys. So I think she was just really into cultural references and paying tribute.
Yeah.
But I think, there's a kind of blurry, dangerous line between tribute and cultural appropriation.
Yes, absolutely.
Like the white girls that show up at Coachella wearing full Native American headdresses.
Yeah.
They could also stop it.
100%. Absolutely.
Just stop it.
Yeah, absolutely. So, all right. So, guys, it is time to play. We're only going to play one.
Do you want to know
Yes.
the deep cut though, or the often overlooked track?
Yes, we will do that here after this game.
After the game. Ooh, I
After
love
the game.
game. I love a game.
Yeah, we have the guys. This one is called Shatner's Poetry Slam.
Oh, nice.
All right. So if you guys are new to the Notes Magotes podcast, hello. We're going to play a game. Now, last week, you would have heard me play what's called the word association name game. And that one is where I take two, or, if you take the first letters of the word association name game, you get Wang. So it is what it is. Today, we are playing Shatner's Poetry Slam. And what I have done is taken 2 tracks from this album. I have Googled the lyrics, and I'm going to read the lyrics to Elizabeth as monotone-esque with random inflection as I can. And she needs to try to guess. And unfortunately, she doesn't have Steve to kind of help her out with this. She needs to kind of guess what track I am referring to.
Ladies and gentlemen, ladies and gentlemen, this is Shatner's Poetry Slam.
So I've got 2 of them for you, Elizabeth.
All right.
Here is your first one. We shall live again. We shall live. What is it? Children that falls from the sky? Tai, tai, tai. I. Manna from heaven, from the Most High. Food from the Father. Tai, I. Do you know what album I am talking about, or what track I am talking?
I do. And how did it make you feel repeating those?
Very, very awkward.
Uncomfortable?
Uncomfortable. And uncomfortable. Absolutely.
Yeah, right? It's just that Native American brave thing.
Yeah, it's
a hard look. It's a hard look.
It really is. It is.
Anyway, that was Ghost Dance.
That was Ghost
You're probably feeling
Dance.
why it's my least favorite even more strongly.
Absolutely. Yeah. It's like for me, I look when I put these, which now this is making me want to do it more. It's like I'm listening to the tracks and I'm like, oh, this will be a good one for the game. And I don't always look at the lyrics ahead of time, and I'm like, this one, Brandon, shot in the foot. It is what it is.
But so you had a surprise.
I did. Yes. So it is what it is. It's all good. But yeah, definitely, guys. Now you understand the reason for Elizabeth's least favorite. Now you get it. All right. So here is your next one, Elizabeth. Partial song title: We Were Walking. Partial song title: We Were Talking. Isabel, my little one, take my hand. Time has come. Isabella, all is glowing. Isabella, all is knowing. And my heart, Isabella, and my head, Isabella. Do you know this one?
I do.
Okay, what is it?
It's Easter.
It really is. Yep.
I like how you put our least favorite tracks in the game.
I did.
Yours and mine.
Yeah. That's fantastic. Now you guys, now you got to go back and listen to those tracks and figure out why we didn't like them. So there it is.
We had our reasons.
We did have our reasons. Absolutely.
We certainly did.
Yeah. And me doing this game made just as much more sense as to why they were our least favorites.
Put a fine point on it.
Absolutely. Absolutely. All right. Elizabeth, you mentioned it before the game. So let's get into it now. What is your deep cut or your dark horse track on this album?
Yeah. So, and this comes with a funny story, but mine is Privilege, parenthetically titled Set Me Free.
Mine as well, actually.
Oh, cool. So
yeah. So let's talk about it.
Sure. Well, I actually bought this album when I was 15.
Okay. So only a couple years ago.
Just a couple years ago. Well, and you remember during Hate Month when I was talking about Brad and the torture I endured with my stepsister making me studiously listen to their albums, and how that probably sowed the seeds of me later becoming a punk rocker.
There you go. Yep.
So here I am, 15, buying this record, and like any self-respecting 15-year-old was, I was grounded a lot.
Sure.
And I liked to put this on and sing along at the top of my lungs while grounded. Set me free. I'm sorry, I'm so goddamn young. Just like,
that's fantastic.
I wish my parents, it must have been hilarious. Like little skinny little 15-year-old me grounded. Set me free.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. That's that's hilarious.
Kids.
Right. Oh my gosh, I tell you what.
This is the drama.
Yeah. Oh,
grounded. Man. Set me free.
That's fantastic.
Yeah. Also, the song's Privilege, and I was in my house in Rhode Island.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
So,
exactly. Oh, that's funny.
Isn't that silly?
That is silly. Yeah, so I actually picked this one too. This track kind of started off with like this eerie gothic choir thing. That was really interesting kind of to start the track. But I think that this track was also one of the highlights of this album overall, in my opinion. A lot of things with this were concise and put together, from the music and the lyrics, and the whole construction of this track I thought were just executed really, really well. So for me, as one who has not heard Patti Smith beyond this album prior, I thought this track was good, and one to go take a listen to. So that one for me as well. Privilege, just a great track overall. So we are at the point now, Elizabeth, where we're going to give our final thoughts on the overall album as a whole, kind of wrap this thing up, and then give it an arbitrary rating from 1 to 10. So why don't you start us off?
Okay. Well, I mean, this is so complicated because of cultural appropriation and word choices.
Yeah.
So I'm going to give this album an 8.5. I think it had potential to be a 10 if she would have dropped her hubris and thinking she was able to rehabilitate.
Sure.
My kids, growing up, were allowed to say lots of swear words, but boy, that was one that I would not tolerate.
Yeah. Yeah.
Any other word, they could call each other fuckers. I'm like, fine, but not that word.
Right. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. So for me, I can appreciate this music from the time frame and the decade that it came from, but just this is me being a 90s child. This kind of rock music is not my normal jam. I can appreciate, as a musician, and as somebody who can appreciate the art of it, I can appreciate this album overall and what she was doing with this one. There are definitely some songs that I could see being karaoke bops, or even ones that you can kind of just play on the jukebox hits, at the local hole in the wall bar. But if you like older rockish style music and haven't heard of this group or this album, first of all, have you lived under a rock? Probably. But this is an album that I do think go ahead and check out, especially if you can find it, which I found it on YouTube. The rock and roll track. Go find that. Take a listen to the whole thing. Or at least check out the tracks that Elizabeth and I talked about tonight, to kind of give you, a highlighted version of the album. So the end of the day for me, though, the needle didn't sway either way for me. Not really a fan, not really not a fan, just kind of rides kind of that middle wave. So for me, I'm actually going to give this one a 5.5 out of 10. So for a guy that doesn't really, this isn't the kind of vibe that I normally go for. It was a nice listen for the time. So I can appreciate it, absolutely. So
I think that sounds fair.
Yeah.
As far as karaoke goes, it takes some big clanking brass balls to bust out rock and roll N-word at karaoke.
Yeah, for sure.
Choose your neighborhood.
Choose your neighborhood wisely. Absolutely. Oh my!
You might get taken outside.
Absolutely, 100%. So, Elizabeth, before we get going, thanks for bringing this album to our attention for us to review. Sad that Steve couldn't be here with us to talk about it a little bit. But before we get going, do you have any social media, or what are you up to these days? This is coming out the end of, well, by the time people are listening to it, it's already out. But we are recording this prior, guys, absolutely, because that's what we do, because we're professionals. This is actually coming out the very last day of March 31st. So what do you have coming up, or what do you have happening?
Yeah, well, Meat for Tea, the Valley Review, my arts and literary journal, will have turned 17 by the time this drops. It has its 17th anniversary this coming Saturday, March 11th. I've produced a multimedia gala with art on exhibit and films and 2 bands, the whole thing. Podcast is still going strong. Let's see, we just recorded our 95th episode. By the time this drops, we're getting closer to our 100th, and we're planning on busting out something special for that. And we have another book in the works called Fixing the Halo by Lindsay Atkins, which is kind of poetic telling of being a recovering Catholic.
Oh, okay.
So
interesting.
And as far as social media goes, on Twitter, I'm hanging in there. If things get too musky, I might have to go.
That's funny. Yeah.
We'll see what happens.
Absolutely.
At Elizabeth.
Nice.
And then there's Meat for Tea on Instagram. Yep. There's a Meat for Tea and a Meat for Tea Press Facebook page. And there's the website, meatfortea.com, at which you can find all the stuff.
Perfect. Yeah, we will put that in the show notes too, so that way fans, if you're listening, go scroll down in our show notes. You'll see everything that Elizabeth is talking about, and you can go check them out. As far as the Notes McGoats podcast, guys, you can find us on Facebook. Search the Notes McGoats podcast. You can find us on Instagram and TikTok at Notes McGoats Pod. We are on Twitter as well, but we don't really post a whole lot on Twitter. And this is the point where I would say, because why, Steve? And he would respond, fuck Elon Musk. And so we don't post. We do
hard agree. Agree.
Yeah. So we don't really post on TikTok or on Twitter, but we are there. We're kind of like that weird family member that just isn't. It's just kind of there. So
lurking.
They're just lurking in the background. Yeah, we're there, but it's just whatever. So yeah. And then you guys can also find us on all major podcasting platforms. And now you can also start finding us on YouTube. So search the Notes McGoats podcast on YouTube. We are starting to put episodes out there, so it should be fun. Guys, this has been Patti Smith's album Easter. Elizabeth, thank you so much for coming and hanging out for a little bit tonight. I totally appreciate it.
Oh, so much fun to be here always.
Absolutely. And Steve, again, buddy, you're missing out because, the last 2 weeks, man, you've missed out on some great guests. But if you ever want to be a guest on the Notes McGoats podcast, just shoot us a message and we'll be glad to get in touch with you. So, guys, this has been the Notes McGoats podcast. I am Brandon, and we will see you on Tuesday.